The idea of this bill, we've seen some cases in the last few years, the last couple election cycles, where a person who was running for office had previously voted with the other party. A few years ago, there was a case of a person who had taken out a primary in one party, but then was slated by the other party to run in a race that they hadn't intended that they were going to do that, but the other party picked them. In that case, it went to the courts. The court said, well, no, that's not really right. You can't start the process with a primary in one party where you're declaring your affiliation and then switch, and then later in the general election run for the other party. More recently, just in 2010, Steve Rauschenberger had run for the Senate. He'd been a senator for many years as a Republican, but he had voted as a Democrat in a township level election. He wanted to run as a Republican. They said, well, no, we think that that's a switch. But then the court said, no, that was a totally different election. This is now the election for 2010, and he was consistently a Republican for that, so we think he should be on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And looking at those two cases, it seemed to me that rather than have the confusion of candidates who don't always know all the election law, and certainly not what court decisions, we can make it clear by taking those court decisions and writing those into law and saying, if you take out a primary ballot for a party, the only thing you can run for in the general election, should you later get into the race in the general election, is for the same party you took the primary ballot. You've declared your party for that election. But it also makes clear that you could have taken the ballot for another party or been an independent, and if they're in different election cycles, you can switch. You're free to make up your mind to change as you need, and it can be different in different election cycles, but within one election, primary and general, it has to be consistent. It has to be the same.
So, I guess playing devil's advocate, a counter argument could be said that you're making it harder for people to run, that it might be a dissuading factor.
Well, in one case, it could have been harder to run if they were afraid, well, I took this township ballot and now I want to run in the general election. They're in different years. Maybe I shouldn't run, that someone's going to accuse me of being with the other party. This makes it clear that if it was a different election, you are free to change. It does make it clear that within one election cycle, you just have to be consistent. You can't say, well, I'm a Democrat at the beginning of the process, a Republican later, or vice versa, Republican later and either an independent or a Democrat later. You can't do that switch within one election. All it does is says you have to be consistent within one election, but you're free to switch any other time.
So, I guess what's the stimulus behind the bill?
Well, it's because, as I say, we've had cases, and those cases have gone all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court and had to be decided there. And to save the candidates and the people who would question what party are they really in, the expense and going through all the legal difficulties and the time-consuming process, this makes it clearer to the candidates, clearer to the voters, what is acceptable under state law. And it really is just capturing what the Illinois Supreme Court has told us in the last couple of major cases they've received on this, and just writes it into law so it's there for all to see.
So in the Supreme Court case, it was would you say is a precursor to this bill?
That's right. What I would say is this codifies into state statute what the Illinois Supreme Court has already decided. So it just makes it clear, because a lot of people, they'll pick up and they'll go to the website for the Illinois, state of Illinois. They can look up the state statutes, and if they're interested in running, they'll see the statutes. And the statutes won't tell them what my bill is telling them. They would have to get a lawyer, and the lawyer would have to go through what cases have been decided by lower courts, by the appellate court, by the Supreme Court. Let's just make that clear. For the people who want to run, it's already been decided by the courts. We're going to make it part of Illinois law, so anyone who goes and clicks on our website, wants to see what the election law is on the books, this will now be on the books too.
So do you expect any controversy or
Well, as I said, I hope not, because really all I'm doing is capturing. If we'd made no changes, what I'm doing is already the law. The Illinois Supreme Court has decided it. That makes it the law of the land. But it's not in our books. It's not what you would click on the website. So this just makes it clear to anyone who is just looking, maybe they're interested in being a candidate, what the law would be, simply writing in the books what the Illinois Supreme Court has decided.
All right. And is there anything else? Oh, what do you think the impact will be in future elections?
Well, I think it will save a lot of legal wrangling because it clarifies exactly when you can switch and when you can't switch parties. And by making that clear, the legal challenges for that type of issue should be diminished.
And is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just think that this is the kind of law that in the long run helps because we have so many issues that sometimes the legislature, for whatever reason, has left something maybe more vague than the attorneys would like it to be, and so it gets challenged, it goes to the courts, and we have a lot of things like that. In fact, many of the bills that we do are these smaller bills, and they really just clarify something in the law that otherwise people aren't sure exactly which way the law says it is. I'd like to see more things like this. I think this is a good type of bill to do to clarify the law and make it clear to anyone who looks at our laws, this is the decision.